Him, and this is my dark room experience.
The story you are about to hear is true. Only the names have been changed. Only the names have been changed.
Growing up Studewood area, being a baby of 6, and recently found out 7 actually that my mom had. My mom always told us about God and she sent us to church. But as a kid, you always thinking, well, what is this real? What is this Christianity thing? So I really didn't take it serious growing up. But then when I met my husband, who was my boyfriend at the time, he was so into the church. He loved God and he constantly talked about God to me and told me all the wonderful things that God had done for him. And the whole key word that he kept saying is how much God loved him. And I wanted that kind of love. So it was easy for me to go and just say, God, I want you to come into my life because I want that kind of love. And I'm so happy. I always think that of all the decisions I've made in my life, the best decision I've ever made was giving my life to the Lord. I never regret it. And I grew up in Studewood. Well, it's independent high school. We affectionately call it Studewood. It's a lot of poverty. It's a lot of things out there. But of course, as a child, you really didn't know. We was in the cheese and butter line, getting our government cheese and food stamps, different things of that nature. And we always found time to just have fun. Go to the park, play basketball, go swimming, run track, play baseball, football. I mean, I was out there with the guys. I have 4 big brothers, so it was easy for me to go out there and just be the tomboy that I was. And it was really fun, even though I went through some persecution because I didn't have some of the things that the others had at school. They called it bullying. But back in my day, it was just somebody messing with you, and you took up for yourself the best you could and kept it moving and just tried to find the best out of every situation. And that's how I grew up. I just always tried to find the best. No matter what I had or what I didn't have, I had me. And I had the talents and gifts that God had already placed in me. Doesn't matter how you start, it's how you finish. So I think back one of the I would say, the turning point in my life. I remember it was summertime, and it was a young man. I was shooting a basketball around, and a young man, he came up to the basketball court, and he was like, "Hey, you're a girl. A girl don't know nothing about basketball." And I'm like, "What? You want to play me?" "Yeah." So we played 1-on-1 and everything, and I beat him, and we just became like good friends. And we would go swimming, everything. It was just like a really cool guy that was visiting for the summer. And so I remember like one day when I went to the park, and one thing I loved is that they had a summer food program at the park that I used to go to. And a lot of times we didn't have food in our house. So when I would go up to that summer food program, that would be my food for the day. And so I found out that the food truck wasn't coming that day. And I was so disappointed because I don't know if you've been a swimmer, swimming takes a lot out of you. It drains you and it makes you really, really hungry. And so I remember I was so disappointed. And my friend, he was like, "Well, you can come to my house and I'll make us some sandwiches." And I was like, "Well, no, I'm 13. My mom said I can't go to a boy's house." "Oh, no, it's okay. My grandmother's there and my family, and I'll ask my grandmother to make us sandwiches." And I'm like, man, I'm so hungry. What could it hurt? So I went against my mom's wishes and I trusted this guy. And I went to his home. And so when I got there, his grandmother was there, just like he said, his uncles, aunts, everybody. It was a house full of people. They had the music up really, really loud. And there was a lot of drinking. And I didn't care about all that. I just wanted my sandwiches and to go home. And so he asked his grandmother to go and make us sandwiches. And he asked me if I could come to his room right quick. And I was like, no, I can't go to your room. I'll just get the sandwiches and leave. And he was like, just right quick, I just want to ask you something. And so I knew that he probably was going to ask me to be his girlfriend. And of course, when you're 13, that's, impressive. So I trusted him again, went to his room. He did ask me to be his girlfriend. And then he asked me to give him a kiss. So it's like, just one kiss, then we have to go. So I gave him a kiss, and then before I know it, his cousin comes in the room, and they break a glass and put it up to my neck. And they say, if you scream, we're going to kill you. I went from being a friend to this perfect gentleman to what's going to happen, what next, which is becoming a rape victim. And so when this guy, he raped me, it's like you could tell he had done it before. He was really acting like I was supposed to enjoy it. And I remember it was like I had an out-of-body experience. Like I totally felt like I separated myself from that situation because I was so embarrassed and I felt so betrayed. It was just a horrible feeling. I just can't even really explain it. You feel so dirty and you feel just like, how can you be so stupid to trust a person like this? And now look, you should have listened to your mom. She knew what she was talking about the whole time. And so I remember after that experience how I just shut down. It's like I just felt useless. I mean, I felt pathetic. I felt worthless. Every negative word you could think of, my self-esteem was gone. He took all of that from me that one day. And because it's like when a person betrays your trust, and on that level, it's hard to get that kind of trust back. A few years later, I had been contemplating suicide. It was just like, we're already going through poverty. Both of my parents are alcoholics. We got so much negativity in my life. What's the point? What's the point of living? And I remember I had to be about 16, 15, somewhere in that area. And I was walking one day, and all of a sudden, I saw this lady. She just walked up to me and she said, if you do it, you'll never see God's face. And I'm like, huh? She's like, don't do it. You need to live. Your life is important. You need to live. It's going to get better. It's going to get better. And I'm like, what is this lady talking about? I don't know her. I've never met this lady in my life. All I can remember is she had a brown skirt and a brown shirt. And I guess she was a black lady from what I can remember in my mind. And I remember her saying if I went through it, I would never see God's face. And so I was like, she must be talking about me taking my life. That's the only thing I could think of. And once she gave me the message, she left. And I walked, and then I turned back, and I didn't see anybody. And I'm like, no, I'm not crazy. I just saw a lady. She just spoke to me. Where's this lady? And back then, I didn't know anything about encounters with angels and different things of that nature. So all I know, it shook me enough to make me say, no, I'm not going to take my life after all. I'm just going to have to deal with this. Never told anybody. I kept this secret for so many years. And when I met my husband when I was 17, I remember we were just talking about life, and I told him I had to tell him a secret that I've never really shared with only maybe a couple of my best friends. And I told him about the situation, and he actually knew the guy as well. And it was crazy, he was very upset behind it, to be expected. And as we got older and as we got married, I remember waiting till both of my children turned 13. And I told each one of them when they made 13 about how my life was altered at the age of 13. You can't blame yourself for the actions of others. It wasn't my fault. Even though I was disobedient, I will blame myself for being disobedient, because parents, when they tell you something, they know what they're talking about. So, but I still can't blame myself for making a person choose to do the demonic actions that he did, because I'm human. He didn't have a right to take from me anything that I didn't want to give him. And that's why we have this big Me Too movement going on, and so many people are bringing a spotlight on rape crisis and things of that nature, because this is something that's not new. You can go all through the Bible and you can see where this has happened, all in the Old Testament. The enemy has constantly used sexual perversion to get at God's people, because the enemy is a pervert. Satan is a pervert. I'm proof that you can persevere through anything. And I thank God, because even through the negativity, he has used that for me to be able to glorify his name and say, God, even though the enemy tried to take me out, you were there for me and you pulled me through. So I'm thankful. One thing about the situation as well that I had to learn is forgiveness. I remember when it first happened, how I hated this guy. I hated his cousin, who used to be one of my best friends as well. And I actually had hatred towards them. And as I grew in Christ and learned about the strength of forgiveness, how it empowers you to learn how to forgive and let go. And people say forgive and forget. You don't forget. You learn how to move on from it. But I don't think you'll ever forget some things. I saw one of the guys on Facebook once. I can't remember the guy who actually did the act. I can't remember his name. Thank God. I blocked him all the way out of my mind. But his cousin, I've been knowing him. I was able to send him my song, Thank You, and let him know he was forgiven. I put a message. I said, I forgive you, and I forgive your cousin for what you all did to me when I was a child. And I just want to let you know I made it out. I'm fine. I'm great. I'm better than all right, because it strengthened me. Everything that the enemy meant for my evil, God turned it around for his good. So I came out stronger than ever. You can be resilient and you can bounce back. And that's why when I go and do that song, I mean those lyrics. I don't ever write a song that I don't mean the lyrics. Everything is based on a true story. If it's not my story, it's somebody's testimony. We have to forgive, and we have to be able to move forward. I want to tell anybody that's ever been a victim of this violent crime that you don't have to be a victim anymore. You can be a victor. And a victor is a person who perseveres through anything that's negative in their life. Don't let the enemy win and have you down, losing your self-esteem like I did, wanting to end your life. No, God is great. I'm doing music, traveling, being a blessing to others. No matter what you've been through, it might not have been rape. It might have been domestic violence, anything. Whatever you've been through that the enemy tried to take you out, you serve him notice today that you are victorious in God. You have the victory, and you walk with your head up and know that, okay? I'm proof. I'm telling you.